everybody. I am Rex Sykes. Oh, and Kara's here as we start the show. How amazing. I'm Rex Sykes. I'm the host of Create Your Best Life with Rex. This is my guest. I'm going to give you, read you her bio, and she can just stay here right where we are. It's always amazing. There are wonderful things that happen in the streaming world, and sometimes they work out just the way you plan. Sometimes they don't work out at all like you planned. But I'm so happy that you're here, Kara, and I'm going to tell the audience about you. This is Baroness Dr. Kara Scott-Dentley, and she's known as the scientist of significance, the strategist of spirit, and the voice of a great level. And she is a force. When she enters the room, excellence stands at attention. From high security government labs to global stages of transformation, Dr. Kara has lived at the intersection of intellect, impact, power, and purpose. As a former federal physicist and geospatial analyst, she pioneered cutting-edge systems for Homeland Security, developing algorithms that identified racial and health disparities long before the world caught up. Her brilliance turned data into destiny, but even that wasn't her final calling. At 35, she left federal service to answer a higher assignment to build people and not just programs. Since then, Kara's become a global voice for purpose-driven leadership, generational healing, and scientific alignment with divine design. She's the acclaimed author of Unlocking the Blueprint of Intention, where she masterfully blends neuroscience, quantum theory, spiritual law to show individuals how to govern their greatness. Her message is clear. Your future is not a mystery. It's a blueprint waiting for your intention. She's also been knighted by the Royal Order of Constantine the Great and St. Helen, and Dr. Kara has been honored not just for what she's accomplished, but for how she uplifts the human spirit. As co-founder of Already, Always, Amazing, alongside her husband, Dr. James Dentley, she brings healing, support, and legacy building resources to children, veterans, and seniors around the world. Her lifestyle brand, Life by Kara, invites others to steward their health, purpose, and potential with intentionality. Whether through wellness initiatives or world-class keynotes, Dr. Kara doesn't motivate, she activates. And when she speaks, the heavens listens. And when she leads, legacies are born. And she's not here to take the stage. She's here to raise the standard. So Baroness Dr. Kara Scott-Dentley, you don't just meet her, you ascend. And here she is. Hi, how are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much, Rex. Thank you for that introduction. I absolutely appreciate you. I appreciate just for how you show up in the world and your heart. I really do. From the first time we met, and we were both receiving our Presidential Lifetime Achievement Awards. And, it's just good people always find a way to find themselves back together again. So here we are.
And here we are. No, it was amazing to be able to receive that honor with you and your husband, Dr. James Dentley, and to stay connected and to be here today and to help change the world in so many ways. This is just a powerful thing. And I think we're cut from the same cloth, the three of us, because quantum physics, spirituality, intention are all really important. The difference between you and I is all your scientific background and intelligence. I can't claim that. I'm just kind of, this is bozo who does things. But you, can you tell us a little bit before we get into the deeper work about your experience back then, developing programs and pioneering all that stuff for Homeland Security?
Yeah. So I worked the program was called Radiological Emergency Preparedness. It was with nuclear power plants, and it was with the federal government. And I would have to be a part of the project that would go out to the actual sites of the nuclear power plants, and we would run drills. And there were actual times where we had to actually activate. So we would run drills to make sure that in the case of any type of nuclear release or radioactive activity, what happens? Like, what happens? What resources do we have access to? Do we have to evacuate, or do we shelter in place? How many people do we have to evacuate? What happens to the agriculture if something happens? Are we without food? Are we without water? Like, literally tapping into all of the details that would be necessary to make sure that all the people within a certain either 10-mile or 50-mile radius of a nuclear power plant, to make sure that they're safe. That was always the main thing. Do they shelter in place or do they evacuate? And what happens afterwards? Because there's always the recover period. And so everything is spatially connected, which is, and it all comes back even now. And we'll go deeper into that, even with relationship building. It's all spatially connected. So if you change one thing and one thing is impacted, it impacts everything else beyond it. And it was like, what is that cascading, ricocheting effect of what happens when there is something that happens at a nuclear power site? And all of the different entities that have to become a part of it. Some are non-government agencies and some are just the private sector, but all hands on deck. It was all hands on deck. And so as a subject matter expert, I was called upon several times to speak to that issue, what's affected. And I would be the one to have to talk to those issues, what has been impacted. And looking back now, it was very rewarding to look back and to see that I was so young. I was like in my 20s, but I had the background and they trusted me with that information. And so I'm forever grateful for that opportunity to have had that experience and to be in that role.
Well, what's also amazing about it is that it fits so well with all the other stuff that you teach, that I teach, that we have in common. I don't have your experience in that background, but I've always told people there's a reason why we do fire drills. You have to be prepared. You have to know what to do, and you have to know where the resources are, and all of the collaboration or cooperation that is required from those not only trying to get out of a building, but those who would be coming into the building or surrounding the building, and how everything works together. And as you well know, if a butterfly flaps swings in South America, an iceberg melts up to the Northern Pole. So, there's no not being affected. We are truly all interconnected, as well as our circumstances, just like the trees that you see above the ground are connected, deep underneath with their roots. And we don't get to see that root connection, but they're just as connected, even though when you look outside, they look like they're, 100 yards apart from each other. So yeah. Everything relates to something else.
Everything relates to everything else.
Yeah.
And just there's actually a law that's called Tobler's law, and it's a geographic law that everything is connected. Like, that's the first part of it. Everything is connected. It's just that those things that are near are more like those things that are near than those things that are further apart. But every single thing is connected, as you stated with the butterfly. When it flaps its wings, it's felt eons and miles away.
Beautiful. I there's something else that is really, I always say, is very, very pertinent, and that is the universe respirates. Almost everything on the planet, we don't know about the bricks and the rocks, that kind of thing, but trees give off, oxygen in exchange of carbon dioxide. Humans do the same. Similarly, insects, even fish breathe, but they breathe differently through water. So we're all connected through this respiration process. We're in a globe surrounded, with an atmosphere. We're actually we live in a terrarium, essentially,
basically.
And we go around we go around the sun. We spin going around the sun about 60,000 miles an hour, and we're just one species essentially, and that's life.
I love that. Every single thing, and we react to one another, and. Yeah. When people think that we operate in these isolated silos, it let me know that there is no us and them. It's us, and it's divine connection, and it's what we have to operate. And as you stated, it is life. And when you think there's this division, you will treat everything as a separation. And when you start to operate in as a separate entity, you don't include or don't have respect for the other, whatever that other may be. It may be the bird, It may be it may be the air itself. It may be the earth. When I see people littering, I'm like, wait, it's the simplest thing. But it's like that one piece of trash in that spot affects everything else. And
it does, yeah. And to continue with that, when I see people who are arguing, or if I'm having an argument with someone else, it's almost as if you're going bam, bam. It's like we think we're separate, but we're a species, we're life, kind of arguing with ourselves. And that's not impossible. I mean, there's night and day, there's hot and cold, there's in and out, there's left and right, it's tall and short. So, I mean, there are different aspects of the same thing.
Right.
But it's interesting that we can't get along. Because we can, if we wanted to.
We can, exactly. It's a choice. It's a choice. And I believe that in a land of choices where we can choose the type of relationships and the dynamics that we have, that I want to choose to get along. I want to choose to make everything as peaceful as possible. Some things you can't control, but for those things that you can, choose to make it as positive as possible. That's what I would say, especially when you really start to understand that it's not just the thing that you do, it transcends time and it transcends boundaries. And so it could be something that may be done or said now that will have a greater impact in the future. And you see it a lot with children, right? You say something to them, maybe it's third grade, you say something negative or positive, and Here it is, they're 35, and they remember that one thing that you said. And
isn't that the truth? That is so true. Yeah.
So,
and it's pardon me, being intentional.
Being intentional.
No, it's funny. I mean, I remember things like, Mom, you said this, and she goes, I don't remember anything like that. What I mean? But I do. And my sister would go, no, you're wrong. She didn't say that. He said that. You know what I mean? I mean, in other words, we sometimes remember things, but inaccurately, and it's misattributed because, we live inside our own stories.
That's it. You're absolutely, once and you and I both know this, once you decide to be intentional and you start to see how things play out, we can actually, operating in that awareness, we can see what the outcome is in any situation. And it's having that awareness and being intentional with it. And to your point, my son and I, we often walk on this trail that is close to our home. And I recall when he was about 6 or 7, there was a juncture where the actual trail splits off into 2 different directions. And he said, I wonder where that other trail goes. And I said, I don't know. That would be interesting. And we started talking, and some way we started talking about him having his own book. But at that particular junction, I asked him, I said, well, if you had a book, what would you call it? And he said, I will call my son's name is Caden. He said, I will call it Caden's Way. And I said, wow. I said, maybe that's what that path leads to, Caden's Way. Now, fast forward to about a year ago, we went down that same path, and my son said, now he's 13. At that time, he was 12. And he said, where's the sign? I said, what sign? He said, the sign that said Caden's Way. And I said, oh my God. I said, Caden, there was never a sign that said. And he was like, I remember the sign. I remember the color. I remember. So he had made up this sign in his mind and through his imagination, just from a conversation. And even with him, he realized I created that image in my mind. And both of us just kind of got quiet at that point. It was just like, wow. I said, you see how easy it is for people to make up stuff in a certain situation that was never there.
That is a really wonderful story and a great example of how, our minds work, in that, people think that we operate on reality, but we don't. We operate on internal maps and stories and conditioning and patterns of thought that we've had for a long time that we assume are true. And to that extent, they are true for us, even if they're not actually legitimately true. if we think they're true, they are. So if a person thinks they're limited, they will act as if they're limited. If a person thinks they're not limited, they will act with volition or, whatever. But we operate off these internal maps that we don't even realize we've created.
Yeah.
And then that determines the reality. What I love is, what is visible is an old story. The circumstances we see through our conditioning. What's invisible is that which hasn't manifested itself apparently to us yet.
Not yet.
But it exists simultaneous with everything.
Everything, just like right now, depending on where you are in the world, all times exist right now. All times exist.
And all possibilities.
And all possibilities.
Hence Schrodinger's cat.
Yeah. It's I've gotten to the point where with yes and no answers, I'm not so quick to give a yes or a no. It really, every answer should probably start with it depends. If someone asks what time it is, well, it depends. It depends on where you are. It depends on where you are in the world. So if I'm on chat, and this has happened, which is why I'm able to speak to this situation. I've been on Zooms or on WhatsApp with people who are in different parts of the country. And they're like, well, what time is it? I'm like, well, are you asking me what time is it where I am? Or what time it is where you are, because everything is relative. If someone asks me, how do I get to a certain location? Well, it depends. Where are you starting? What is your starting point? Everything is subjective to so many other factors. And when people say things like, well, this is reality, this is life. Well, that depends. That depends on whose life. Who are you having this conversation with? So many different things. So I've found myself being able to make those teachable moments with a person, because then they start to realize that everything is just not black and white. There's so much gray area. Everything is on a spectrum. Even like what we see is all on a spectrum. And And it's a beautiful thing, because it goes to show that, like you said, we're all creating our own stories based on what we have through our own experiences. And not just the experience, but the definition of the experience, because you can have two people with the same experience, but communicated totally differently.
Oh my God, that is beautiful. And I love it depends, because if somebody says, how long is this going to take? Well, it depends. It depends on how you apply yourself or who you're traveling with. Like that saying, if you want to go further, go with someone else. If you want to go fast, go alone. So it depends. How much is this going to cost? Well, that depends. And are you considering how much it will cost if you don't do it?
Right.
Because I mean, so everything is
relative.
Related, right? Relative, yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those things like when Einstein, with the theory of relativity. Well, how fast was it going? Well, it depends. Were you standing still? If you're on the train, are you going the speed of the train? Or if you're walking on the train, are you now going the speed of the train as well as the speed that you're walking? Or do you subtract the two? It's so many different factors. And like I said, it's being in this space of just this next level understanding that everything is relative. There are no absolutes.
So I mean, that's beautiful. I just want people to stop and think about that. So if you're in the caboose and there's 100 cars to the engine, and you walk from the caboose to the engine while the train is going 60 miles an hour, how fast are you really going? Because you're getting yeah.
So. It's all of those different things. There's so many different things and most people don't take into account all of these different factors in their life experiences. And not only do they not take it into account, because they're themselves, so they can only have their own their own perspective, right? They can only see from their vantage point. But I think it's even more beautiful when you can actually take that thought process and apply it to someone else and give them grace. I think that's where the true beauty lies. It's not so much for me to say, to have all of this information and just say, hey, look at what I know. I'm applying these same principles and these same laws to other people. So when I see people, or if I'm having a conversation with someone and someone is having an experience that may not be my own, I'm not passing judgment. It's so many other things that have contributed to this person's experience that I'm not going to say, oh, well, shame on them. I mean, well, what happened? Because I understand that you get certain inputs, which will just lead to certain outputs. I just look at inputs and outputs at this point, because it's like, okay, there are things that led to that output. So you wind up with results, right? So it's almost like when I was coding, that's what it was. And I would go to my teacher. I would say, because I used to code, and I would say, I don't know, I don't know why I got this answer. He's like, well, what did you put in? And even now, I'm like, well, what did you put in? Like, even with the children that turn into adults, where we're like, well, this person, whatever the situation is, it's like, well, what went in? What went into this person? Because now we have a result of those inputs.
Well, it's like a recipe. I mean, if you put in certain ingredients, you get a certain result. If you leave out an ingredient or you cook it before you put the ingredients in, you get a different result. And yet, while that's, I think, an accurate representation, it's also a limited representation, because we don't live recipes. You know what I mean? I mean, we're living all these things at one time, and so we look here, and because of our filters, we miss there. And we're navigating this experience that we think is real, like it's out there, but it's all coming from in here.
Yeah. Yeah. The sign. Where's the sign? What sign?
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. Oh, that's so beautiful. Now, I want to point out to the audience who's watching, who is live now, that if you have a question for Dr. Kara, or you have a comment that you want to make, you can do that in the chat room. If you're watching in replay, obviously you can't do that. That's why we encourage people to watch live, so that they can interact. And just because of the nature of this technology, we don't oftentimes see people interacting from where they are. They're leaving a comment, in some social media platform, but it doesn't get to us. So it's not, if you're leaving comments or asking questions and we're not answering, it's not because we don't want to, it's because we just aren't receiving them. And so also, just so you know, that the replay is available at Create Your Best Life with Rex, my YouTube channel, and there's the address. But the point is that the replay is available immediately after the show. So if you love what my guest I should say Baroness Dr. Kara is speaking on, please go ahead and share it out. Get the show and then take the link and share it to your friends and your family and all those people, so that they too can benefit from what she's talking about. So here we actually have awesome interview posting on Facebook. I'm trying to get everybody to, okay. Thank you so much, Melody. Melody is a wonderful, wonderful, passionate change agent too. And so thank you for being here. Really appreciate that.
I could tell she has a heart of gold.
Yeah. I
love that.
So when we started moments ago or years ago, we're not really sure. When we started, you made mention of like relationships and, children and your son and your wife. So if somebody is having an issue, something difficult, they want to change their life and they're not sure how to do it, what might one of the first kind of steps or suggestions might you make to help connect that person up with the resources or the possibilities or the opportunities that they aren't quite yet noticing?
I was about to answer. Well, it depends. It depends. If it's something with relationships, I mean, sometimes people are dealing with things and they have a lot of things to unpack. It's almost like peeling back an onion. There are some things that are deeply rooted that they don't even realize that they have, that are that are perceived to hold them back. And so I would say, whatever it is that a person wants to excel in or succeed in, whatever it is. But first of all, you need to have clarity on what it is that you want, because if you don't know what you want, you will find attracting everything that may or may not line up with the life that is designed for you, which is why I always talk about your blueprint Everyone has a blueprint. And so I may see someone speaking about science and I may get excited and say, oh, I want to go and do chemistry. I am not a chemist. I mean, I could do it, but it's not about what I can do. It's what I'm designed to do. I am a physicist. I help people like map through and operate and illustrate and write out their own personal blueprint based on different algorithms. Doing algorithm development, I understand what that looks like. So understanding if a person is having challenges, is it a relationship thing? Is it a career thing? Is it like finding your purpose? I would say link up with someone who is a coach or someone who could help you on that path. It may be me. This is what I do. I actually have a course with that. But the first thing is having that clarity. Once you have clarity and you're operating in an awareness, now you need to make sure that you put yourself in spaces. And then I'm just assuming that this is someone who is trying to go somewhere as far as career or business. You want to surround yourself. And I beat this thing up about being in the right environment and making sure your relationships align with the purpose that you see fit for your life. And so making sure that you're in the rooms with people who are doing the things that you want to do. If it's something that someone is dealing with as far as their children or marriage, talk to someone who has had some experience in that. Talk to someone. I mean, of course, you want to make sure that you vet the person and you want to make sure that they have the experience necessary to help you walk that path, to help you to see things that you may not be able to see. And I've learned that sometimes, we can't see our own blind spots. Everyone, I mean, all successful people have people in their spaces that they can be very frank with, that they can be very direct with, and not take it personally. We have to make sure that when someone is trying to give us, and this should be constructive criticism, that they're trying to help you, but sometimes it comes off wrong, right? People are like, and then their defenses go up and everyone's judging me, and that doesn't necessarily have to be the case. So one of the things that even my husband and I, if there's something that we need to share, we don't have to, preface a conversation with it now, but we understand that when there's something that needs to be said, even whether we're coaching someone or we're talking to someone else, and we're trying to get a point across that may not be received well, or we don't know, we'll say, do you mind if I share something with you? And most of the time people will say, yeah, sure. And they let their guards down and they open the door for that. And it could be with whatever. So when you're having these conversations with people, regardless of what it is, whether it's with your career path, relationship, children, I feel like if you understand a person's intention, so many things can happen for you and through you if you understand another person's intention and they understand your intentions, and you can go so much further with those things. So even with like Rex, with what we do with mindset, mastery, and understanding, when you're tapping into, his show, then know that there's all these nuggets, like we're picking up these things along the way in life, right? And we're shutting out all of those things that won't serve us. I've gotten to the point where it's like certain things I'm just not listening to, certain things I'm not watching on television. It's not serving me. It doesn't hit my spirit well. I don't want to be involved. So I'm just so intentional with those things and making sure that those conversations, that the people that I'm around, that they know that I have their best interests at heart. I just want to see people win. At the end of the day, we'll look up 100 years from now, and the only thing that we would have left are the things that we left behind. And I hope and pray that it's all the positive things that you would like to see for your generations to come.
Wow. Well, no, I deeply appreciate that, and I appreciate you. I have oftentimes, we do workshops and seminars, we do keynotes, all the kinds of things that we do, and people ask a question, and I'm very reluctant in many ways to answer a question because I am aware that people will take it as a cookie cutter reply, that it applies to all people at all times, in all circumstances, in all locations, and it's like, no, I'm answering this person, and if I can, I will fan it out or generalize it to other people as well, or try and, poke that there may be some nuances. But what you said is so, you dropped so many gold nuggets. That's amazing. But, the idea that we don't see our blind spots there, and you said, get somebody who, has done what you've done essentially. And I agree. Like people say, well, I want to, somebody says, here, how you get rich because I'm rich. And I go, well, if that person doesn't have a background similar to yours, when they started, they're not going to be able to give you the pathway because their pathway doesn't match your pathway. It's like if somebody's born rich, that's very different advice coming from someone who's born rich. And so you want people, I don't mean to, you want people to be able to talk to you and point out what you do not know. But if there's no, symmetry, there's no actual
alignment,
then the advice may not work for you. So you're just getting advice that may be. Well, one last point that I want to make, because I know you can go on hours about when you. In the old days, you're driving along and you had to check your blind spot. So you look in a mirror, but that's not enough. You have to actually turn your head to look and make sure there's nobody that's outside of the range of your mirror.
That's right.
Right. So you want to be careful. Now, today we have backup cameras, but when you're looking at the backup camera, you're not looking anywhere else. You're backing up, looking at a camera, and everything else that's in front of you or to the sides of you is not on that screen where you're backing up. So we miss so many things based on what we're paying attention to or not paying attention to.
That's it. No one thing is the end all be all.
Right.
To your point, when you're answering a question for someone from the stage, because you don't want to make any sweeping generalizations or any sweeping stage statements, because most of the time there will be an anomaly. There will be something or someone who that does not apply to, right? And it's like if someone were to ask both of us right now, if they said, how do you get to Chicago? Like we're a little further south than downtown Chicago. But if someone asked about getting to Willis Tower, right? And they ask both of us, you would give a totally different direction. You will say you go south. When I answer the question, I would say you would go north. So it depends. Like you said, from a person's starting point, you want to make sure that whoever you align with as a coach, that they understand that and that you're operating within your blueprint. And this is what I always tell people. You can't use my blueprint. I can't use your blueprint. So you want to have your own blueprint, because there are a lot of generalizations out here that everyone's like, do what I'm doing. Like you said, get rich.
Can I share a pet peeve?
Yeah.
I hate the notion of massive action, because most habits don't come through massive action. It's not a one-time big event. Now, sometimes you do need to take extra action. Like if your car is stuck in the mud, you might have to lift it out or tow it out, but you don't have to take massive action always to get it going. You can take your car and put it in neutral, and it's on a flat surface. You can push your car, and after a while, because of physics principles, it'll create its own momentum. So you can push it, maybe push it again to keep it going, but it has its own, and this notion that you always have to take massive action at everything is like forcing it. You can't really force things.
What does that mean? Because even massive action is relative depending on who you're talking to. What does that mean? Does that mean like shut it all down and like leave the kids in the home by themselves and you just go off to the races to make it happen? And it's so many other intricate details that are there. For even for myself, like I talk a lot about my son because that's always been like my focus. And everybody's focus may or may not be their children, but I know that I attract people in my program that are like, yeah, my kids are like, I want to make sure that in the process of me operating and going towards my goals and dreams and all the things that I feel will make me successful, I want to make sure that I don't leave behind the reason why I'm doing it while I'm doing it. And I get that because I've heard people say things like, well, forget the games and the graduations. And I'm like, see, that's important to me. Those are milestones that I don't want to miss. Right. And so you want to make sure that you align with people that have the same values and standards. And it's not to say do what I do. No, but make sure that when you're aligning with someone to get to where you want to go, that all of these things kind of, that some of these things kind of line up, that you're in alignment. Because if they're take all out massive action and they're like, well, I missed all of my kids' graduations, like you can too. But if family is important to you, that wouldn't resonate with the person well in that case. And then they may feel like they're a failure. I feel like with everybody, what you are intended to do is already within the blueprint of your own DNA. And you see it early on in small children. You may see them pick up a microphone and they're just singing, and you don't even understand the words that they are belting out. But you can almost say without any hesitation, that's a singer right there. That baby will be a singer. And we've seen it when people are allowed to flourish in their gift, and they're around people to help move that gift forward. Like there's no forcing, like you said. There is no, they don't mind waking up at the crack of dawn to make it happen. They go to sleep doing that thing. They wake up doing that thing. And I think that all of the different systems that we've put in place have actually put everybody in the box. And we've said, no, this is the way that you do it. You go to school, you go and get a degree, then you get another degree. And we're starting to see all of these systems just fall apart.
Right. Wow.
Right.
That is so true. So very true. You know, the interesting thing about that is that if you're meant to do it, if you love it, if you're aligned and congruent, you do it. And it's not, no matter what, it isn't a problem. You know, people say, well, I never worked a day in my life because I loved what I did. And the other person goes, I've worked for 50 years and I've hated every moment of it. You know, it really is. If you were meant to be a poet or an actor or a singer or a juggler or a cook or a banker or whatever it might be, or a scientist, you know, then it doesn't matter if that's your career or not necessarily. And some people think, well, you know, I love acting, so I have to be an actor. Well, yes, but it doesn't mean you have to be a professional actor. If you're acting and if you're doing things, you could be. But you know what I'm saying? Some people have as much of a box around the things that they think they ought to be doing. And sometimes that is the problem, because I ought to be this to be creative, when in fact there might be, you know, it's finding what I think what you're saying is to find the inner blueprint and to connect with it, and to be aligned and congruent. Then things start to kind of work, which seems like magic, but it's not magic, because it's what's there that is now coming out. Yeah.
It's your own vision for your life, and it's coming from you. Like, okay, we always talk about faith, right? Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. And I like to tie that in, because that what comes from you, that's your faith. When you walk into a restaurant, you're stepping into someone's faith. You're that is their faith. That's the manifestation of their faith right there. I can't give you a better example. When you, like, we had our backyard redone, and when they redid the swimming pool and all of that, we had a blueprint. They showed us what it would look like, and it came out just like what it looked like. But when you think about all of those things, it became the substance of the thing that was hoped for, and the evidence of something that was not seen before. So with everything, when you wear clothes, it was in someone's mind that they created. So when I bring this up because I have people that often ask the question, how do you separate, spirituality and science? I'm like, it's the same thing. It's a flip of the same coin. You really can't. Like, science is just like the explanation. It's just asking the questions. It's just going down the rabbit hole, basically. Well, what happens when that happens? And then the next researcher comes along and stacks another question on top of previous research, and you continue to stack these questions to just get to put it in a nomenclature, just to give it a naming convention. But all of it is spiritual.
Well, and I would argue that and submit that most of science only validates what we already knew.
That's it. That's what I mean. It's already there. It's just giving it a naming. It's just coming up with something. The law of relativity, whatever. Just come up with it. Whatever.
And there are people who go, I need to have the scientific explanation before I'll believe it. And other people say, oh, I don't need the science. I just want to, it's all
believe it and create.
And this is why another one of my pet peeves is I hate the term like-minded people. And yet I want like-minded people, but I also don't want like-minded people, because I want people who also can see where I'm not seeing. If we're all looking at the same thing, we're missing everything else. So we need to be surrounded by those who connect with us and to us and for us, and then those people who give us the opportunity.
I like that.
Yeah.
So what we're gonna come up with, Rex? We're gonna come up with people that have aligned intentionality.
Yes.
I like that.
I do too.
Because then it doesn't matter. Bring your pieces. Let's put our pieces together. And let's make something bigger that will impact the masses on a global scale, that it will be something that we can look back and be proud of, that we've helped to move humanity further, just from those inputs that we were able to just bring out of us and to bring forth. So that's what we're gonna call it. Instead of like-minded, no, we want congruent and aligned intentionality. Those are the people that we want to align with.
Well, because you want it inside yourself too. You want to be congruent so that you're moving in an alignment with yourself and your goals and your desires and your dreams and your DNA and everything else. And so finding those people who also align in that fashion with you and they're congruent is wonderful.
Yes.
And hopefully you also find those people who can, through that process, challenge you to see further than you would have otherwise.
Always. I think that was part of while I was, especially while I was doing research. My research is published all over the world. And I don't say that to brag, but it was. And I mean, I was young. I don't realize now, like looking back, like I was a kid, like I'm published all around the world. I just didn't realize that. And many of my professors, because I always challenge them, not in the way of their ability or their knowledge, but they would say something. I would say, okay, so does this mean? And I would take it up a notch and I would take it that much further. So my professors would always come back and say, you know what, I want you to do research with me, because like the way that your brain works, it was like the details that they may not have even thought about. And I had one teacher that we actually became really good friends afterwards. But I could tell when I would ask a question, he would get a little perturbed. And I was like, what is going on? So I went to his office that particular day. It was mostly male professors. And I was like, I wasn't trying to aggravate you. I was just asking a question to make sure that I understood. And he said, well, I was wondering, why would you wait until I was completely finished to ask the question? I said, because that's how I was taught, because you may have addressed my question before I asked my question. So I waited until you were finished with that topic to ask a question about that topic. And he said, oh, I didn't look at it like that. And I was like, okay. I said, but that's why I said, honestly, I just want to know, like, you're here to teach and I'm here to learn. Like, it's really that simple. And so he respected that. And we became really good. It was a really good relationship, student teacher.
Well, but what you just said right there, I think speaks volumes. You're a lifelong learner. And it's more important to ask good questions than it is to get the answers sometimes, because you can ask questions and get answers that get you nowhere based on your question. You know, so you wait, you discover, and you stay open for the answer, or for the information, or for the activity, or for the behavior, or for the feeling, or something to come about, as opposed to closing it. And a lot of people close it. You know, they go, oh, I went to college, then I was done, and then they spend the rest of their life reliving what they learned in college, instead of being open to the new things that they could discover about themselves and the world and how to get along with other people.
Wow, what you just said is absolutely correct. And most people and those are the people that wonder why they're stuck when they're ready to move forward. They're not watching your podcast, they're not watching your show, they're not reading any books, they're not lifelong, just it's like a thirst for knowledge. You know, it's one of those things that I'm just like, well, what does that mean? And I'm trained to just think that way. Well, what does that mean? You know, just very analytical, just to learn more and to be able to have more information, not just for myself, but to share it with other people to help them see things bigger, brighter, faster, farther. Like, how can I help? What can I do to help humanity, basically?
You know, I love this, and I love talking with you, and because it opens up so many avenues. And the thing that I appreciate about you and Dr. James and the work that you do, you know, is about helping people find within them that spark that allows them to create the fire of their passion, their purpose, their blueprint, and how that aligns for them inside themselves, but also how it can work to collaborate and cooperate with other people to raise everything up, you know, to make the world a better place, essentially.
Yeah. I've realized so many different things, and I would say one of which, what I would really encourage, especially people who have little people around. I call them little people. Of course, my son is big now, but I would always call them little people because I want to see who you are at the core. I want to see. And so of course I will put my son in all of these different activities. And you and I had this conversation before. I put him in basketball, I put him in soccer, hockey, name it. I mean, all of the art, coding classes. Enjoyed it. It was cool, just and I put him in chess. I don't play chess. I mean, I just never sat down to even play. And the minute he came home after playing chess, he did it a few times, and he said, "Oh, I'm going to do this. I'm going to be I'm going to be a GM. I'm going to be a grandmaster. Yeah, I'm going to do this." And he was about 7 or 8 at the time. Now he's 13 and he competes in tournaments, and he looks at that board. He plays with the clock, and I mean, he plays with adults. And we're going on a chess cruise in January. Just yeah, oh yeah, we went on a marketers cruise, right? And he's there and he's looking for people like, okay, the pool is cool, but I want to play chess. Like that's all he wanted to do. So he kept going up to people like, "Do you play chess?" He was sitting in the well, in like the cafeteria area where you eat, and he's just like with his board, just waiting with the board set up, right, just ready. So at one of the previous tournaments, that we saw that they were having an actual cruise for chess, because someone on the marketers cruise said, "What if you arranged and organized a chess cruise?" I was like, "Organize a chess cruise? I don't know if I would want to do that." And but then we found someone who's actually doing one. So it's tournaments and it's rated, and he's so excited to go.
Oh, that's so
But
cool.
that came from him. That it wasn't that I was beating him over the head saying this is what you need to do, because anything that a person does and they do it well and they do it from the heart, they'll stay up long hours to learn it. They'll study it. Like he has a shirt that say, "I study chess, I research chess, I play chess, I'm dreaming about chess, I'm talking about chess. Like this is what I do. Like chess is my life." And I'm just like, if people would just let their gifts come out and just nurture those gifts that come out of individuals. I don't care. It could be the little people that I talked about, or maybe your spouse. Like, let them be free to just be. That would be the best. That person would shine in so many other areas of their life. It wouldn't just be in their profession, because they'll illuminate. They'll just glow. They'll just, because their gift. That's how you give true worship. If you really want to know, that is worship.
It is, no, it's great. I mean, it is worship. It is a beautiful way to be. Let me ask you, because we've got about 8 or 9 minutes left, and then I have to close the show and talk about my book. So before I do that, I want to talk about your book, and also point out that lifebykara.fanclub.com underneath your name is one of the ways to reach you, but also there's your IG page going, or IG address, Life by Kara Official at Instagram. So I wanted to make sure that they do that. But let's just talk about your book too and how they can get that, because it's an awesome book.
Thank you so much. It is called Unlocking the Blueprint of Intention. I don't know if the words are whatever way it is, but it is called Unlocking the Blueprint of Intention, the keys to governing your greatness with science. And it is available on Amazon. You could actually type my name in, which you may find the actual workbook that I have to accompany this my book. But I've gotten so many rave reviews about my book that people have actually written back to me and said, they've reevaluated the way that they even think about life, and the way that they even think about being intentional in their purpose. Is helping them to rewire the idea of they have to do anything a certain way, as Rex was just talking about, that here is the box. If you don't do it the way that we have instructed you in this box, then you're doing it wrong. I want to encourage you that you can do it the way that you feel it in your spirit, and that will give you the most liberation that there is to have. Like, you will have so much freedom in that, and you can create your own path. Don't ever feel like you're restrained. Like, we are here as creators. We are told that we are made in the likeness and in the image of God, and God creates. So naturally, we are here to create. So that is what my book is about. I've even had people to say, if I would have known what is in this book, because I integrate scientific laws and principles into just real life. I didn't want it to be like a textbook, right? With all of these different laws, but I was like, how does this How does this translate to real life stories in your life? So I've had people to come back and say, if I had read your book before I raised my kids, I would have raised them totally different. And I've gotten that over and over again, that people have bought this book, not just for themselves, but for their family members. Like, I need you to read this book so that I can articulate some things to you that I wasn't able to say it verbally out of my own mouth. And that really blesses me. I feel like my work is not done, all right? But that is definitely a seed that I'm able to plant in the lives of many people. So it's called Unlocking the Blueprint of Intention, the keys to governing your greatness with science, governing your own greatness. Unlock your own blueprint. You don't have to wait for anybody else to tell you what that looks like.
You know, it's I love you and I love your book. You know, I love your work. You know, so that's and you know, people see mine behind it, but I want people to get your book, because one of the things that I really appreciate and love is that it really, when you talk about alignment and congruent, there's an intuitive process of, you know, because it's not the cookie cutter thing. It's not all the rules and regulations. It's not going to someone and go, what do I need to do? And then they tell you this formula, they give you the recipe, and then you follow the recipe. There are people who follow a recipe, and then there are master chefs. You know, there are people who can, you know, and the master chef can sample things and taste things. And it's about presentation. It's about experience, about all these other things. And it's from the heart, not just from, here are the rules, because it's just like coloring inside the line so that you can color outside the line, or coloring outside the line so you can color inside the line. But what you said, you know, you can create your own path and you can follow your own guide, but you have to be in touch with that inner guide in order to get that kind of answer or that kind of direction, so that you're not having to go outside and ask other people, what am I supposed to do next? You know what to do next because it's being from your being.
Yeah. Most people just need to, they just need confirmation.
Yes.
That's what people are looking for. And that's okay if they're looking for confirmation, but you don't need your whole blueprint laid out for you to ask someone, well, what am I supposed to do with my life? You know. And maybe you're looking through life through a different lens because you've been told for so long what to do that you've lost that spark, but it's there. You want to read Rex's book because Rex's book is going to tell you what it says, life on your terms. And then behind that, get this one or read them together, whatever the case may be. Have a
there you go. We'll have a blueprint terms book.
That's it. Because we speak the same language and we communicate the same thing to tell people that you have it. You don't have to go outside of yourself, to make sure that you are around people that can help you to fulfill those things. But like Rex said, it has to be in you to come out. So there may be some shedding. There will be some shedding. Maybe people, places, and things, but just get ready for it. But your greatness is already within you. And that's why I say unlock the blueprint of your intention, because you have the keys.
That's so beautiful. And so in the next 2 or 3 minutes, what's next for you? What's going on with you and Dr. James, and what are you doing? Is there something that people can tune into or find out about?
Absolutely. So I have my courses. We have the speakers camp. That's to help people to communicate better. It may be communicating from the stage. It may be communicating with family members. Maybe they're stuck. Maybe they just can't get their point across. Maybe they feel like they always hit a wall when they want to speak their truth, but learning how to communicate effectively. So we always have that camp. We have one coming up here soon. I would encourage you to go to Inspired to Speak, and that's the number 2, Inspired to Speak. But you can also go to my page. You can go to my Instagram. I think that would be the easiest and very direct, and then we could have a conversation. Let me know how you like the show. Go to Life by Kara Official on Instagram, Life by Kara Official. I run my own social media. Yes, I'm still that girl. So I would love to have a conversation with you. And we have retreats coming up. We have so many different events that we do. I have my program where I help people to document their intention, to really just get out of their own way and just to like free themselves from feeling like they're stuck, because you're not stuck. You're maybe distracted, but you're not stuck. Like, it's in you. And so I just want to point this out real quick before I just turn everything over. I always wear my keys And people always ask about my keys because keys give you access. And I want you to understand that you're not looking for access outside of yourself. It's already within you. So go ahead and just unlock your own greatness because you already have the key. You're not looking for anyone else to give it to you. You already have it.
Well, that is so beautiful. The other thing that I really love is you're not stuck. You might be distracted. I've always said that stuck implies lack of movement. So if you're stuck, what do? You move. Yeah.
Well, that's one of the scientific laws. An object in motion stays in motion.
Stays in motion. Exactly.
An object at rest stays at rest.
Absolutely. Until acted upon by a force greater than itself. Yeah, absolutely. That's so wonderful. And you are that force. And each of us are. And I want to thank you so much for being here. Go to Amazon, get Dr. Kara Scott-Dentley's book, Unlocking the Blueprint of Intention. Go get it. And then also look up her Instagram. It's scrolling right there. The other thing I really want you to do is if you like the show, subscribe to the show. It's at Create Your Best Life with Rex. Subscribe, like, hit that smash button, hit the bell notification so you're always notified. And then leave comments or questions because Dr. Kara might see those comments and questions and also be able to answer somehow or connect with you there too, or through many different ways. But if you do nothing, nothing ever changes and nothing ever happens. But if you actually act and do something to share and to make it available for other people, then you're helping other people connect in positive ways with a powerhouse and a force who doesn't motivate, she activates.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And we'll talk in just a few moments. I love you. I love Dr. James. And I love the fact that we got to share this time together. We got to do it again.
Yes, and, I agree. Let's do that. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. And I'm going to close out the show, and I'm going to talk about my book. So, get both. All right. Thank you, Baroness Dr. Kara Scott-Dentley. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. So you're here watching the show, and I'm telling you about my book. My book is at Amazon.com as well. However, if you go to rexsykes.com/book, and this is important, Life on Your Terms is I always say it's a blueprint for living your life. And so it's cool. You have to get the blueprint for Dr. Kara and then get Life on Your Terms. But it is a really incredible opportunity to live your life and create the life that you deserve and the life that you desire most, the life that's inside you waiting to come out. If you go to rexsykes.com/book, in addition to getting the book, right there at that website, there are details for how you can get, as a gift to you, a online video training valued at $497 called The Mastery Loop. It's my work that I've done for 40 years on mastery, how you master your thoughts, your feelings, your words, your behaviors, and any talent or ability that you want to master easier, more effortlessly, with more fun and delight than you may have ever thought possible, because most people tell you have to struggle, you have to fight, you have to 10x it, you have to take massive action, you have to beat yourself up in order to succeed. And you don't. If you understand that, then you're ahead of the game. And if you know how to do that, you unleash this incredible power and this ability to influence yourself and others positively and make things happen. So go to rexsykes.com/book, get my book, get the bonus training that I gift you, and then go to Amazon and get or the other way around, and get Dr. Kara's book. And with that, I'm Rex Sykes. I've got a great guest coming up next time as well on Create Your Best Life with Rex. Remember, the replays are at Create Your Best Life with Rex, the YouTube channel. So if you go and you copy that link and you share that to your friends and your family and your colleagues and even with strangers on social media, you'll help get the word out. If you loved what Dr. Kara said, and I know you do, and you love what the show is about, I know you know that you might, or I hope that you do, then what I want you to do is please go share it and make it available for others, because you can reach people that she and I could never reach. All right. And with that, I'm Rex Sykes. And I want to say, as I have in the past, and I don't always do it now, but if you consider something a problem, it's a problem. If you consider something a blessing, it's a blessing. So the key is to celebrate everything. Mindset matters. Attitude matters. Celebrate it all. Celebrate everything. Until next time, I remain Rex Sykes. This is Create Your Best Life with Rex. Namaste. And that's it for now. See you next time.